again. This is our bonus episode. We're back here with Kelley Kitley. She was amazing. If you listen to her whole story, that was yesterday, or I don't know, whenever you're listening to it, don't worry about it. Don't get caught up in the details. Like, just have fun. Um, I wanted to have her back because she's an actual resource professional, works in the field. She's a psychotherapist. She's known by the nickname America's Social Worker. She's done all these appearances on all these TV shows talking about substance use disorder, etc. And I was thinking, let's talk about some of the most common things that people maybe ask me, ask you,
Sure.
what might lead somebody into therapy and they start like saying like, I don't know if I have a drinking problem. I don't feel like, I mean, I do drink a lot and I worry about my drinking sometimes, but I'm not that bad.
Mhm.
What do you say to those people?
Well, those are a lot of my clients,
Yeah.
middle-aged women who are looking at their drinking and don't identify as having a problem yet or have had some experiences that have been alarming to them where they're like, maybe I should look at my drinking. And I take a very relaxed approach in terms of I don't need to diagnose somebody with, substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder. It's more of let's do some research around how is alcohol impacting you in your life on a daily basis, weekend basis, whatever it might be. So I do educate about a spectrum of use. And so something that I'll do is if somebody decides, they usually aren't coming to me right away to say, I want to talk about my drinking. It's kind of
Oh
like
God, that's the last thing they want to talk about.
they kind of like they're having relationship problems or, have extreme anxiety or they've been depressed or, noticing a shift in their mood. And, it was interesting because a lot of my clients didn't read my book and some did. The ones who did were like, oh, great. Can I talk about my drinking now? So I think there's even shame in going to talk to a therapist about drinking and feeling judged and how much is too much and I think something that's really important to recognize too is what might be a lot of alcohol for one woman might not be a lot of alcohol for another woman. So I get that question a lot, like, well, how much is too much? And it's like, okay, well, we have all this information through the CDC and the Surgeon General released a warning that any amount of alcohol could cause cancer, 7 different kinds of cancers. So yeah, alcohol is really toxic and poison if we want to get really specific. But people don't really take that seriously. So it's like, let's get realistic and say, I've worked with people who've said, I want to cut back on drinking. And so we'll use a moderation management approach where they're just trying to be more mindful when they're out socially, maybe giving themselves permission to have 6 drinks over the course of a week. And when do they decide to have those drinks? If they have 2 outings that week, maybe they're, splitting it and saying, well, I'll have 3 glasses of wine on Wednesday. And then, on Saturday, maybe I'll try to alternate one beer with water, or I'll try to drink some, non-alcoholic drinks. And so a lot of it is just the observation of what they're noticing. And are they able to kind of recognize maybe what it feels like if they're at a social event and they're not drinking? A lot of people feel really anxious if they're the only person not drinking at a social event. And sometimes it's just the ritual of like holding something and feeling like you're participating with people. So I start with that piece of just the awareness and also just getting really honest, like how much are you drinking? I mean, even when people go in for physicals, they usually lie to their doctor about how much they're really drinking too, because they don't want to be judged. And there was a joke in grad school that was like, when you ask somebody how much they're drinking and they tell you, you should usually add 5 drinks to that total because that's usually more on par for how much they're drinking
Oh,
for the.
whenever I would go and get a physical, and they
Yeah,
would say there would be the box that was like 0 to 7 drinks a week or
yeah.
whatever. And then anything above that seems kind of lushy, even though in my mind, I'm like, who's having 7 drinks a week? That's like nothing. Like if I'm having a couple of drinks a night, I'm already up there at 14 a week plus, which, but that's normal. Like in my mind, I was
Yeah.
always like, everybody in this world is so strict about like how many drinks. Like, of course, more than 7. Let's
Yeah.
be realistic.
Yes, yes. And I didn't know the people who were, drinking 0 to 7. I'm
The
like,
zero to
people really do,
sevens.
yeah, who does that? Like even if I see somebody who doesn't drink, half of their wine, I'm like, how do you leave that? You don't have to finish that.
No, that's
Um,
crazy. Yeah.
I know. So that first step is the awareness piece of it. And I do that in an intake. And I say to people, I ask everybody the same question in terms of, because I take a whole health perspective. I'm a social worker. So I'm interested in like, are you moving your body? Are you, how's your sleep? What are you drinking? What are you eating? What all of these kind of components just to get a life picture of what their daily functioning is. And so some people will try moderation management. And I have people today that I work with that are able to moderate. I mean, I will say that that is not the norm. If somebody's like, I'm, kind of going down a slippery slope, or I, blacked out, or I hurt myself, or, usually in my experience, people end up giving up alcohol completely with the people that I work with long term who are looking at their alcohol because they recognize they have a problem. There are repeated patterns of trying to moderate or abstain or, switch drinks, and they keep having repeated patterns of hurting themselves, hurting somebody else, having relationship problems, increased tolerance, and not being able to stop once they start. And so that goes into a different category of somebody who's doing the research and finding that they are still engaging in problematic drinking. But I will say that some people will dip their toe in trying to eliminate, July and January are months that are globally recognized as dry, where
Really? Dry July. Oh, because it rhymes.
dry July, dry January, yes, where people abstain for how many days are in July? Oh, 31 and 30
31.
in January too. And so they will give up drinking for that time.
I would
Um,
have been like, I'll do June because it's 30 days. Like, why does it have to be July? It still has the J sound. Can I
definitely.
do dry June?
You can do dry whatever, right? Like, and some people who sign up for that notice like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better and I'm sleeping better and I'm eating better and I'm moving my body. And, I notice that I remember things in the morning. And I've worked with people who've kept it going and then they're like, I just feel so great. I think I had talked to Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos on their show Live with Kelly and Mark. And that's what Kelly said. She was like, yeah, I tried dry January and I just kept going. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. For some people, it's that easy. For other people, like myself, it's not. So I think that there's more information we can have by just bringing an awareness to how much are we drinking? When are
And
we?
and
And
maybe that's a good test too, because if people try dry January and they make it to like January 3rd and then they rationalize a reason to have a drink, maybe that is like some good feedback for yourself of like, this is really hard
absolutely.
to
And a
not
lot of
drink
people do that.
information.
Yes. Red light flashing. Hey, maybe this is a problem. But then for me, and for a lot of people I work with, they have no problem giving it up for a month. I mean, it's hard because of social situations. Nobody wants to be in a social situation where they're the only one drinking, especially if it's the first time. You can feel really uncomfortable. But, I felt great after giving it up for 30 days. It was February 1st that I was like making up for lost time because I was like, oh, well, now I can drink. So there was no bridge in terms of going from not drinking to drinking a lot. So I think that that's an indicator too, just like, and that's something that I psychoeducate on TV about. If you give it up for January, don't start drinking excessively on February 1st as like a reward that you didn't drink for an entire month. Ease in, maybe have one drink, see how that feels. I mean, look, I mostly talk to alcoholics and addicts. So it's the idea of moderation is nil, right? Like it,
Well,
I can't.
most people, yeah, are not going to be able to follow the advice of like, hey, Feb 1, ease into it. I mean, most people that have a problem are like Okay, sure.
Right. Right. I guess that's the biggest indicator. If that's your response, you might have a problem.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about this middle of the road. These are the people that come to me all the time. So
Yes.
now I'm coming to you
Okay.
with their
Okay.
problem. People
Uh-huh.
come to me and they go, "How do I know? Like I feel like I'm in such a gray area, like your movie is called.
Mhm.
Like I mean, yes, every once in a while get drunk and accidentally I find out that I wake up in my kid's bed and I read them stories and I don't even remember it and I'm filled with shame.
Sure.
But I didn't drive anywhere and my kid wasn't even really aware that I was drunk. And then I didn't do it again for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So do I have
Yeah.
a problem?
Well, and that, I mean, even when people ask me, I don't say, yes, you have a problem, unless I really think that there are all of these reasons that we have talked about in our sessions together. But if somebody says, this is what happened, do you think I have a problem? I always turn it back and say, what does it feel like to you? Like, if you're asking if you think it's a problem, it probably is because it doesn't feel good and it's worth looking into. I'm not saying that this person would need to immediately go to 12-step meetings, but I would say that it is important to maybe seek individual therapy, maybe talk to other people who have stopped drinking and ask what it was like for them. What did they do? I mean, I love learning from other people who have been somewhere before me that I want to go to, right? So for me, yes, I would say that was something that worked really well for me. And that's an option. I also work with people who, will look at moderation management. There is a book about it. There are online support groups to try to moderate. There's She Recovers, that is more an approach of we're all recovering from something and trying to change behaviors, whether that's around food or codependency or alcohol or drug use. So that is more of like a support group similar to a 12-step program.
Not to poop on moderation management, but
Mhm.
you know that like the founder of moderation management ended up not able to moderate and like killed some people drunk driving. I
Yeah.
always feel like that's not the best like slogan for them, obviously, but I just remember I did a when I was writing my book, I did a lot of research into that because I always was very attracted to the idea of moderation. And I just sort of, for me, came to the conclusion that like if I could moderate, I wouldn't need a program to help me moderate, I guess. Because
Wow. Okay.
I mean, in my own way, I'm not trying to be judgmental for
No, I
myself.
appreciate this.
I
Thank
was
you.
like,
Yes.
I can't moderate, which is why I'm thinking about moderating all the time because I
Sure.
clearly like I I mean, in my book, I wrote about all of my big plans for moderating, and I was going to write it all down in a fancy journal. I was going to take it real
Yeah.
seriously, and then I would immediately not be able to moderate. So I feel
Sure.
like if you're paying money or part of a group where you're like,
Sure.
we're all going to moderate, chances are at some point you're not going to moderate.
Or okay,
Is that
let's
wrong?
language. No, I think that's spot on. But I see some of these sober coaches who are marketing like drink less. Or Annie Grace, like This Naked Mind, I think is the name of her book. Or, I mean, look, there have been people who are like, yes, I drink less, or like apps to like track drinking less. Like that is insanity to me for somebody who tried to do that for so many years. And it
Right.
made me feel worse because I couldn't do it. But for some people, maybe abstinence isn't the answer. Maybe moderation ish is. I don't know. I always think in my practicing for over 25 years, the patterns I have seen is people usually come in asking to moderate, try it, and years later end up giving it up altogether or they drop out of therapy.
Yeah, and by the way, trust when I say that I did not want to quit drinking. I quit drinking, kicking and screaming, and definitely tried many times. I was not somebody who was like, you know what? I'm an alcoholic. I need to quit drinking. Oh God, no. I was like, I got some fight in me. I really think I can do it this time. I think I could drink less this time.
Yeah,
that will never happen again. I am not blacking out. I'm going to be aware. And then it was just, I mean, kicking and screaming.
sure.
Now I went to AA because I had very young kids. I wasn't physically dependent on alcohol. So I didn't have a um, withdrawal symptoms. I
Sure.
will say that I was taking Xanax. I was on Lexapro, not Lexapro, Zoloft. So I
Hmm.
was on an antidepressant and taking a good healthy dose of Xanax for
Yeah,
anxiety. So that gave me withdrawal because
sure.
I was like, I got to get off I didn't have to get off Zoloft. And it took me a couple years actually. So
Yeah,
this is not saying anybody needs to do that. My point is, I was like, I don't think I have enough of a problem to go to rehab. I
sure.
mean, I was like, I don't need to detox. I need help though. I need support.
Hmm.
And I also couldn't leave for 30 days. So I think for maybe a lot of people that are in a situation like I was in, like you were in, rehab is out of the question. So my next step was a 12 step. But I deal with a lot of people who are like, I am absolutely not going to a 12-step meeting. Not for me. There's going to be too much God talk. Even if I'm like, you know, really, it doesn't really matter. Like, I just
Take
ignore
with
the
me.
God talk.
Yeah,
I don't
they're with
care.
you.
But
Uh-huh.
some people are like, absolutely not. So
Sure,
talk to
sure.
me about some of these other, like she recovers. These are meetings.
Yes, they are online meetings and they are peer facilitated. And the founders, the mother and daughter, are both in recovery. And it's a nonprofit. You don't pay for it. And it's supportive meetings. And that is usually my go-to for people who are curious and trying to get some more information just about how other women, it's a collective experience, how other women are coping, other issues that are coming up. And whether it's AA or not, storytelling is so healing for people because they can see their self in somebody else's story more so than sometimes we can see ourselves in our own stuff. So I think that that can be very helpful. That's a piece of a 12-step program that I love. So whether it's an AA meeting, which is not, usually people are like, I'm not going to that. That's too extreme. That's too cultish. There has to be some kind of community. And maybe it's an exercise class. I know that doesn't help with your drinking, but it's an accountability that you show up, that you maybe meet somebody there. You have to let other people support you in it because it's too hard to do it on your own.
When I first got sober, I mean, we're talking like my second meeting ever.
Yeah,
I said that I drove drunk with my kids in the car. I cried. I cried at every meeting for a while.
me too.
And this mom came up to me, a woman came up to me and she was like, honey, I breastfed so drunk that I ended up having to take my daughter to the hospital to be checked out. Her kid was fine. But I'm just saying, and she was the kindest, like like just a
Sure.
normal, like you would never on the street be like, that woman breastfed her kid drunk, you know? And she had so her approach was so kind and non-judgmental and just like that to me, I've always just been a fan of the me too, of the
Yeah.
you think you're bad, you ain't that bad.
Yeah.
There's way worse. And
Sure.
there's also less. Like when I wrote Drunkish, the whole idea of the book was that I kind of had a high it was my original title was going to be High Bottom Girls,
Mhm.
which but my publisher said no because people wouldn't get it and I was like whatever. But the whole point was like it doesn't really matter because when people have reviewed it on Amazon and they do
Mhm.
um not so kindly sometimes, but
Yeah.
some people are like, wow, she really wasn't that bad. And other people are like, it's crazy that she thinks she wasn't that bad. Like,
Mhm.
she's way bad.
Yeah.
So I think that that's like an indicator that everybody is welcome and that whatever you think your story is, whether you think that you don't have your problem's not bad enough or whether you think like, oh, I'm the worst person who's going to be in that room, it's just not true. And
Yeah.
you are going to hear your story if you stay long enough, right? In whatever,
Mhm.
as long as there's meetings involved. But there are I mean, I don't know. Or maybe you could go to a Pilates class and just start talking about your drinking and see if you get some support.
I'm sure you could. They'd be like, and we're doing yoga and wine night. Like, great, this is perfect. No, but all kidding aside, it's like there's so much quit lit out there. There are so many podcasts about, not so many, but like I think we're transforming the way we're talking about it, that we're looking at educating people about what alcohol actually really does to our body and our brain and our relationships and all the things that can go wrong with drinking alcohol. So there are other things that we can tap into that doesn't necessarily have to be this qualifier of are you bad enough or not? Like that's where I think people are like, but I'm not that bad. I mean, when I stop drinking, people are like, well, if you stop drinking, then I should probably stop drinking, And it's like, who cares what the world thinks? Get quiet and think about how is this impacting you? Yeah, there are people who need detox and 30-day inpatient treatment because they are physically addicted and can't stop without removing themselves from an environment. There are other people like you and I who have been able to do it in different, more um, ways where you're straddling home life and going to meetings and maybe therapy and other support systems.
So you don't believe that, like for me and my experience, I feel like some people, the people I know, need to experience some sense of desperation to really quit. But in your experience, and you probably have more experience with more different types, it's possible to really quit for good without any kind of bad consequences or feeling desperate to quit.
Yeah, yeah, that has been my experience. It's not the norm, but it has been my experience where people will say, hey, I'm sober curious, I want to see what this is like, and then they're like, wow, this is great. There have to be behavior changes. It can't just be, like, and that's why I was talking about a class. Like there has to be support in place. There has to be changes in lifestyle. So if somebody's used to going and socializing at a bar with other couples, it's like, well, you probably don't want to do that if you're trying to change the way that you're consuming, whether you're giving it up completely or trying to cut back. Try doing other things that aren't revolved around alcohol. It's a lot harder to not drink if you're not making any other behavior changes in your life and you keep doing the same thing and you're just removing the drink.
So if you have, let's say, a client who's a mom and their mom friends are all like deep in wine mommy culture,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like, but if I stop drinking, I'm going to lose all my friends,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, could be true.
Oh, for sure. I've seen it.
Yeah, same. I've had it happen to me where when I quit, I was not invited to a lot of
Uh-huh.
mommy wine stuff
Yeah.
because they wanted me to feel comfortable. And I was like, no, you want to feel comfortable. You don't want the mom who's not drinking staring y'all down.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable to drink around people who don't drink.
Totally. So what do you tell those people? Do you say, well, like you're doing this for yourself and you're just going to lose some friends or not? Or is there any advice you have for them?
Well, it's both. It's like if you have genuine relationships with those people, I have seen people make changes and there is a ripple effect, where it's like, oh, wow, why aren't you drinking? And if you can get honest and say, like, I just don't like the way it makes me feel, or it makes me super anxious, then it also can be transformative for the whole group. I've seen that happen personally as well as for clients. But yeah, you're going to lose some people along the way if you don't have that common interest in mind. So sometimes it's not worth it to people to lose those friendships to stop drinking. Sometimes they're like, no, I'm good. I don't want to make these changes. But there are some people who say, yeah, I'm just going to pick different activities where I'm surrounded by other like-minded people that doesn't involve drinking. And they, you know, can feel okay about that.
And parting words, I feel like, are that quitting drinking is transformative. It might be the best thing you've ever done. And for anybody that's experiencing their life feeling like an addict, you are going to be a better parent. You're going to be a better partner. You're going to be a better friend. You're going to have a better life if you want to, try it.
Sure. And even if it's abstaining and thinking about whether or not you want to drink rather than it being habitual, and like you go to a restaurant and, oh, the waiter just kept bringing my glass over and pouring it. And before I knew it, I was 4 sheets in or 4 glasses in. Be mindful when you go out. Tell the waiter, I'm good. Thanks. If you just want to try to have one drink, if you can do that. I'm just saying these
Yeah.
are all experiments.
I couldn't.
I couldn't
That was
either.
my biggest problem. That was
Yeah.
my refrain. They've kept bringing me drinks.
I
My
was
husband.
overserved last night. Their fault.
Oh my gosh, thank you so so much for your time. This was like such a fun
So fun.
bonus for people. I just already adore you and need to be your best friend.
Okay, done.
Okay.
Done. I'll
All
let you
right.
know when I'm in LA next.
All right. So just to reiterate, buy her book. It's called Myself. Watch her movie, Gray Area. Um, check out Serendipitous if you live somewhere near Chicago in the state of Chicago. Um, and yeah, that's all your stuff, right?
That's it. Yeah. Good
And
stuff.
check her
Follow
out.
me on
Go look her up. Oh,
Instagram or
yeah,
what?
follow her. Okay, Instagram, yes, is Kelley Kitley.
Yep.
Is this your name?
Yep.
There's an
Yeah.
extra E in Kelley,
Thanks.
Kelley, but you'll see it in the description of the episode. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Feeling like life is good, life is good, yeah. Life is good, life is good. feeling like life is good.